240 pages. You will not read all of it. That is the first thing a senior associate named Fletcher tells you on your third day at the fund. Not as a criticism, as a fact. The confidential information memorandum on your screen was prepared by an investment bank to make a business look like everything a buyer could want. Your job is not to read it like a document. Your job is to read it like an argument and find everything the argument is not saying. You are 24 years old. You came from 2 years in investment banking. You built models there too, but those models were in service of advice. This model is in service of a decision that will commit $180 million of the fund's capital to owning a business for the next 5 to 7 years. The distinction feels abstract until it isn't. Fletcher reviews your first leveraged buyout model on a Thursday afternoon. He makes 11 corrections. He explains none of them. He sends it back with a single line. Run it again at 4 times leverage and tell me what the exit multiple needs to be to return 2 times invested capital at year 5. You run it again. You understand something for the first time. In investment banking, a wrong model costs a client a conversation. In private equity, a wrong model costs the fund a company. This is what every stage of a private equity career actually looks like. Not the version described in recruiting materials. Not the carry projections in the pitch deck. The real version. What each stage costs. What it selects for. And the specific thing this industry rewards that almost nobody can articulate before they have spent a decade inside it. Private equity is not a deal business. It is an ownership business. The deals are the entry points. The ownership is the work. And the work lasts longer and costs more. And demands more from the person doing it than anything the model on your screen currently accounts for. Fletcher's 11 corrections are waiting in your inbox. You open the model. You run it again. 4 years later. You are 28. The deal closed 6 months ago at an enterprise value of $260 million. The thesis was clean. A mid-market distribution business with stable cash flows, an underinvested logistics network, and a management team that the diligence process described as experienced and aligned. The business is not what the diligence described. The EBITDA was overstated by roughly 14%, the result of one-time items that were presented as recurring and a revenue recognition policy that is technically defensible and functionally misleading. The logistics network requires capital expenditure the model did not account for. The management team is one person. A CEO named Garrett who has been running this business for 11 years, who knows every supplier relationship by first name, and who sits across from you at quarterly reviews with the specific patience of someone who has decided to wait you out. Garrett does not resent the fund. He resents the 28-year-old across the table who is paid more than he is, and who has owned this business for 6 months, and who is now explaining to him what his business needs. You recommended this deal. Your name is on the investment memorandum. The choice you face at this stage is not whether the business can be fixed. Businesses can almost always be improved incrementally. The choice is whether the improvement available is sufficient to return the fund's capital at a multiple the investors were promised, and whether the person across the table from you is the right person to deliver it. You delay the decision for 2 quarters. It cost the fund $1.3 million in management fees paid to a consulting firm hired to validate conclusions you already held. The model said the business was one thing. The business said the model was wrong. The business was right. You will not make this particular mistake again. Not because you become a better modeler, because you learn what the model cannot see and begin to value the information that lives outside it. 3 years after that. You are 32. You are a vice president. This is your deal. Not the fund's deal with you on the team, but a process you sourced, structured, and negotiated from the first conversation to the signing of the purchase agreement. A software business. $11 million of recurring revenue, growing at 22% annually for the past 3 years. The founder wants to sell. He has had 3 conversations with other funds and chosen yours, not because of the price. The price is within a narrow range of what any comparable fund would offer, because of the conversation. Because of something in the dynamic of the process that told him this was the team he wanted to own his business. You closed the deal at a total enterprise value of $85 million. 2 years later, it is performing above plan. Revenue is $15 million. Growth has held. The management team expanded without losing the culture that made the business what the model said it was. You were right about the business. You were right about the founder. You were right about the market. You will remember this deal for the rest of your career. Not because it went well, because of what happened at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, 3 days before signing, when the founder called to say he was reconsidering. A competing fund had come back with a price $4 million higher. He was not asking you to match it. He was telling you, with the specific courtesy of someone who has already made a decision, that he was going to take the other offer. You did not match the price. You told him something true about why the price difference would cost him more than $4 million in the wrong hands over 5 years. You said it without a deck, without a model. From everything you had learned about this business over 7 months of diligence and 3 years of reading businesses that turned out not to be what they appeared, he called back at midnight. He took your offer. The deal that defines you is not the one that went best. It is the one that nearly fell apart. And didn't, because of a decision you made alone. You cannot explain this to your partner at dinner that night. The relief is real. The stakes were real. But the language for it does not exist outside a room that contains 3 people. And 2 of them are already asleep. The win is real. The audience for it is 3 people. 2 years later. You are 35. Your title is principal. You have a seat on the investment committee. You review deals you did not source, and models you did not build, and make decisions about businesses. You will spend less time inside than the associates who will do the work. The job has changed again. There is an associate named Reed, 2 years into the fund, technically excellent, the kind of person whose models you review the way Fletcher once reviewed yours. He makes the same mistakes you made at 24. Not analytical mistakes, judgment mistakes. The mistake of believing the model when the model and the business are in disagreement. The mistake of optimizing the presentation of the investment thesis rather than stress testing it. You correct the models. You do not explain all of the corrections. Not because you are withholding, because some of what you know cannot be taught in a comment on a spreadsheet. It has to be learned the way you learned it. In a room with a CEO who has been running a business for 11 years and is waiting for you to understand that the model is not the business, you begin to understand that your job is no longer to be the best investor in the fund. It is to build an environment in which the next version of you, and the version after that, can become the best investor the fund has ever seen. The deals still get done. Revenue still compounds. The portfolio grows. But the growth now happens in rooms you are not in. Through processes you designed and judgment calls made by people you hired and trained and whose development you are now accountable for, in a way that does not show up on any return calculation. The principal's job is not to be the best investor in the room. It is to build the room. The ones who cannot make this transition leave the fund, not because they are asked to, because the job has changed into something they did not join the industry to do. And they are honest enough to recognize it. 6 years later. You are 41. The fund has been running for 9 years. The exits have begun. 3 portfolio companies sold, 1 written down. The blended return on invested capital is 2.4 times, a number that places this fund in the top quartile of its vintage year and which will be cited in the marketing materials for the next fund for the next decade. Your carried interest distribution arrives in 2 tranches. The total is $4,200,000. It is a number you have known theoretically since you understood what carry was. It does not feel like what you expected. Not disappointing, not insufficient, just different, quieter than the number implied it would be. The way a destination feels when you have been traveling toward it for long enough that arriving feels less like arrival and more like the point at which the traveling stops. Your children are 9 and 11. Over the past 6 years, you have missed a number of things. You know the number because your partner kept a list, not as an accusation, but as a record. 31 school events. 4 birthdays celebrated a day late. 1 recital you watched from a video taken on a phone in a room you were not in. The carry does not give these things back. It was not supposed to. You knew this. You made the choice with full awareness of what the choice cost. Or you told yourself you did, in the years when the cost was theoretical and the carry was a number in a waterfall calculation and not a wire transfer in an account that your children do not know exists yet. The carry is not compensation. It is the settlement of a bet you made against 15 years of your own life. The fund performed. The bet paid. The settlement is real. What remains is the question of what the next fund costs, and whether the answer is the same as it was the first time. 5 stages, 17 years. But here is what private equity does not put in the recruiting materials. Every stage selects for something different. The analyst stage selects for precision. The associate stage selects for judgment. The vice president stage selects for conviction. The principal stage selects for architecture. The partner stage selects for something that has no clean name. A combination of patience and self-knowledge and the specific willingness to be wrong about a business for long enough to understand whether you were wrong about the business or wrong about the timeline. Most people who enter this industry are excellent at the first selection. Almost none of them were told what the final one requires. Stay with us for 90 seconds. Private equity does not reward the best analyst. It does not reward the hardest worker. It rewards the person who can hold a thesis for 5 years through a business that is actively trying to disprove it and know, at the end, whether the thesis was right, or whether they were simply lucky that the market moved in their direction. Most people in private equity never know the difference. The ones who build long careers do. Not because they were right more often, because they developed the specific discipline of distinguishing between a thesis that needs more time and a thesis that was wrong from the beginning. Those two things feel identical from the inside. A business underperforming its model in year 2 looks the same whether the model was optimistic or whether the business needs another 18 months to inflect. The data cannot tell you which. The quarterly review cannot tell you. The consulting firm hired to validate the thesis cannot tell you. The only thing that can tell you is the quality of your original thinking held honestly against the evidence that has accumulated since. This is the skill the industry cannot teach and cannot model and cannot observe until it is demonstrated under conditions of real capital, real time, and real consequence. That distinction, felt in the body before it can be articulated in a memo, is the entire career. The people who reach the carry did not get there because they were the best analysts in their analyst class. They got there because they learned, slowly, through businesses like Garrett's, through deals that nearly fell apart at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, through fund cycles that tested every assumption they had ever made about themselves as investors. What it actually means to own something, not to model it, not to advise on it, not to present it to a committee, to own it, for years, through everything the model did not anticipate, and to know, at the end, what you actually did. Somewhere right now, a junior analyst is opening a confidential information memorandum. 240 pages. They will not read all of it. Not yet. They are still reading it the way you read the first one, as a document, not an argument, looking for the information rather than the gaps in the information, trusting the model before the model has been tested against the business. Fletcher has not told them yet, or someone like Fletcher has, and the words landed without the weight they will carry in 3 years, when the weight arrives through a business that did not perform, a CEO named Garrett who waited them out, and a night when the deal that defined them nearly didn't close. The memorandum is the same document it was 17 years ago. The question it is asking has changed entirely. Not, can this business be acquired? Now, should this business be ours? A private equity career is not a series of deals. It is a single, 20-year question about what you are willing to own and for how long. The investment committee meets tomorrow. The game continues.